January 16, 2004. It seemed like another classic Michael Jackson performance, surrounded by screaming fans. But this time, Jackson's stage was the roof of an SUV outside the Santa Barbara County Courthouse. After nearly a decade of being suspected of child molestation, the king of pop was about to face the music.
I was trying my best to get him down. I knew it wouldn't look right. I knew it wasn't appropriate.
Ben Brafman was one of Jackson's attorneys.
I recognized that, this is Michael Jackson. He's a 12-year-old superstar with thousands of people shrieking and screaming. He was trying to not affect the legal proceedings in any way. I think he was responding to his fans by at least showing them his face.
CNN's Jeffrey Toobin was in the courtroom.
This was certainly the most bizarre criminal trial I ever saw. Every day, Michael Jackson showed up in one of his Captain Crunch outfits, and he just didn't look like anyone else you'd ever met.
Michael Jackson was officially charged with 7 counts of child molestation and several other felonies. He pleaded not guilty.
The criminal charges were not a total surprise because several years earlier, Jackson had settled a civil claim against him by a boy under very similar circumstances.
But Brafman says the superstar was terrified. We
were alone in a room, and it was the first time I really had an opportunity to be completely alone with him, because in all other meetings there were a whole entourage present. There were dozens of lawyers and bodyguards and assistants, and without warning, he just broke down and began to sob, and we were sitting very close, and he actually collapsed on my shoulder, and he was sobbing.
It would take a year before a jury was seated and the trial began. The circus surrounding the trial seemed more than Jackson could bear. The superstar seemed to be fading in front of the world's eyes.
He was emaciated. He didn't exchange words with his lawyers very often. And as the trial progressed, he got weaker and weaker, including that one bizarre day when he called in sick and the judge said, "Come in anyway," and Jackson showed up in court in his pajamas.
It was March 10, 2005, the second day of testimony by Jackson's teenage accuser.
I feared for Michael Jackson, not that the trial was going to end badly, but that something would happen to Michael. When I saw that spectacle, I realized that my concerns about his frailty, about his physical issues and emotional instability were even more well-founded.
It took a terrible toll.
No comment.
Thomas Mesereau was Jackson's lead defense attorney, walking Jackson into the courtroom nearly every day.
And I think this trial and this entire case took a terrible toll on him emotionally and physically.
Were you worried that he might not make it?
I was on occasion. Sometimes he would call me at 3 in the morning crying, terrified about what would happen to his children. On verdict day, he looked like death warmed over. It was just sad. His cheeks were sunken in. He could hardly smile. He looked horrible.
It was June 13, 2005. After more than 2 months of testimony, 135 witnesses, and 7 days of deliberation, the jury reached a verdict. Followed by news helicopters and a convoy of cars, Jackson rushed from Neverland Ranch to the courthouse. He was greeted by a crush of reporters and fans. It was a kind of attention and screams he was accustomed to, but his face was expressionless.
The people of the state of California, plaintiff versus Michael Joe Jackson, defendant, not guilty of a lewd act upon a minor child.
With each not guilty verdict, the crowd outside cheered.
I just looked at him and hugged him, and he just said, "Thank you, thank you." He was very placid. He was very, very controlled. He sat there on a daily basis, watching accusations hurled at him, suggesting that he was an insensitive monster, and I know that it tore him to pieces. He survived it with 14 acquittals, but was damage done to his soul, to his spirit, to his gentle, kind way of looking at the world? I suspect so.
Coming up, Michael Jackson, from riches to rags.